Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's session. In this webinar, we'll be exploring paganism, a rich and diverse set of spiritual paths that often don't receive much attention in mainstream education.
Hello, I'm Nicola and I'm Jigsaw's Regional Advisor for the East of England. I've got 27 years experience as a primary school teacher and I still teach 2 days a week, and I'm RE subject lead, which I've held for about 8 years. I've also been on SLT and various different whole school curriculum leads across my career. I'm also a qualified mindfulness teacher and a forest school leader.
And I'm Geraldine Yates, and I'm known as Jerry. I have 25 years plus of primary education experience. 15 of those were spent as an RE lead and a collective worship lead. I've also spent several years as a Senko, an ITT mentor, a governor and a deputy head. I came out of the classroom in September 2023 and I'm now the Jigsaw Regional Advisor for the North East and for Yorkshire and the Humber. I sit on Darlington Sacre and I'm also involved in teacher training in the North East.
To begin, it's important to understand that paganism is not a single religion, but rather an umbrella term covering a wide range of different traditions and practices. It might be more accurate to talk about paganisms rather than paganism. Some people might identify as Wiccan, others as Druids, heathens, or as pagans with highly individual practices. Because of this variety, you'll meet pagans with very different ways of worship, celebration, and worldview, so there's no one size fits all. Despite these differences, there are some common threads that run through pagan traditions. One of the most distinctive features is animism, the belief that the natural world is alive, interconnected, and filled with spirit. For many pagans, every tree, stone, river, or animal is part of a wider web of life, deserving of respect and reverence. Another key theme is the sacred feminine. Many pagan traditions honour the goddess or feminine aspects of divinity, celebrating qualities such as creativity, nurture, and renewal alongside the masculine energies. This emphasis helps to balance spiritual perspectives and reinforces the idea that divinity can be experienced in multiple forms. At its heart, paganism encourages people to notice and celebrate the rhythms of the natural world, the seasons, the cycles of the moon, the turning of the year. Rather than seeing nature as a resource to be used, pagans often experience it as sacred, something to be in relationship with. They embody a sense of living in an enchanted, interconnected world full of wonder, meaning, and mystery. Paganism can feel very different from the more familiar religious worldviews that we might teach about in school. As teachers, understanding this worldview can help us appreciate how some children and families may experience spirituality differently, and it also gives us new ways to think about the human relationship with nature, an increasingly important theme in education today.
Modern paganism, or paganisms, includes a variety of traditions, some of which we're going to touch on now, although this overview is by no means exhaustive. So some pagans identify as Wicca and may follow the wheel of the year, worship a god and goddess, and celebrate magic and ritual. Some pagans follow the pathway of Druidry, often inspired by the ancient Druids of Celtic Europe. There may be a focus on nature, trees, ancestors, and the cycles of the seasons. Those who follow the pathway of heathenry, which can be seen as a revival of Norse and Germanic paganism, may worship gods like Odin, Thor, and Freya. Those pagans who practice shamanism may act as mediators between the human world and the spirit world. Some modern pagans use the term neo-pagan to distinguish their modern nature-based spiritual paths from pre-Christian pagan religions. There are many different pagan traditions, and some pagans don't identify with any particular path and may combine elements from different traditions, and they're usually called eclectic pagans.
So who are Wiccans? Wiccans are followers of Wicca, a modern pagan religion that developed in the mid-20th century. Although it's relatively new, Wicca draws inspiration from much older European pagan traditions, folklore, ceremonial magic, and a deep connection to nature. Wiccans practice a nature-based spirituality, honouring the cycles of the seasons, the phases of the moon, and the rhythms of the natural world. At the heart of Wicca is the idea that the divine can be experienced in both feminine and masculine forms, often expressed as the goddess and the god. However, just like the wider pagan community, Wiccans can be very diverse, so beliefs and practices vary from person to person and from tradition to tradition. The key beliefs of Wiccans. Many Wiccans talk about divine duality, the balance of feminine and masculine energies, symbolised by the goddess and the god. Some may focus on one or honour multiple deities from different cultural traditions. Nature is central to Wiccan belief. The cycles of the sun and the moon, the turning of the seasons, and the four classical elements of earth, air, fire, and water, all are seen as sacred and interconnected. Wiccans may also practice magic or spell work, which is understood as a way of focusing intention and creating positive change. This is usually guided by a strong ethical principle known as the Wiccan Rede, and it harm none, do what ye will. In other words, Wiccan practice emphasises responsibility and non-harm. Beliefs about the afterlife also vary. Some Wiccans believe in reincarnation, and others focus more on personal growth and spiritual development in this life. One of the most recognisable parts of the Wiccan practice is the Wheel of the Year. This is a cycle of 8 seasonal festivals, which include the solstice, equinoxes, and festivals. These celebrations help Wiccans connect with the natural and agricultural rhythms of the year. Rituals are another key part of Wiccan practice. These might involve casting a circle to create sacred space, lighting candles, meditating, chanting, or performing symbolic actions to honour deities or mark life events. Many Wiccans also have small daily, weekly practices, perhaps a moment of reflection, a simple blessing, or observing the moon's phases. Like paganism more broadly, Wicca is far from uniform. There are several different Wiccan traditions and various forms of eclectic Wicca, each with its own structures and ways of working. Wiccans may understand divinity differently. Some focus on the god and goddess, others honour a wide range of deities, and some experience divinity as present throughout the natural world. Practices can also look quite different. Some Wiccans work alone or solitary practitioners, while others join covens, which are small groups that meet regularly for ritual and study. Rituals may be formal and structured, or creative and personalised. Cultural influences may also play a role. Wiccans may draw inspiration from mythology, folklore, or artistic traditions from many different cultures, shaping a spiritual path that feels meaningful to them. For educators, it's important to know that Wicca is a peaceful, ethical, nature-based religion. When Wiccans use the term witch, it refers to a practitioner of magic aimed at positive and constructive intentions, not the scary or fictional versions children might know from films or books. There is considerable diversity within Wicca, so not all Wiccans follow the same rituals or honour the same deities. When teaching about Wicca, it's best to focus on its connection to nature, seasonal celebrations, respect for all living things, and ethical principles, helping students understand it as a modern, meaningful spiritual path rather than relying on sensationalised stereotypes.
So, as we've mentioned, modern paganism includes a variety of traditions and we're going to turn our focus to one pathway called Druidry, which is often inspired by ancient Celtic spiritual practices. In many Druid groups today, members may explore three interconnected roles or grades: bards, ovates and druids. These aren't strict categories, but rather pathways of learning, growth and service. Some, but not all, orders split into three grades, which you can see on the screen now, with emphasis on creativity, study of the natural and hidden worlds, and philosophy and leadership. Traditionally, bards are considered to be storytellers, poets, musicians, and keepers of cultural memory. Many bards use creativity and performance to inspire, preserve wisdom, and connect people with nature and community. In modern practice, many bards may focus on the arts, storytelling, and celebrating seasonal festivals through music and poetry. Ovates are associated with healing, prophecy, and connection with the natural world. Many ovates study herbalism, divination, and the cycles of life and death. In modern paganism, some ovates may be seen as those who seek insight, practice healing, and deepen their awareness of the land and spirit. Druids were traditionally considered to be spiritual leaders, judges and teachers in Celtic societies, and today many Druids are often seen as philosophers and guides who bring together wisdom, creativity and spiritual understanding. Many modern Druids lead rituals, teach and help build communities that honour the natural world. These three paths are not rigid hierarchies, as I've already said, but are ways of exploring spirituality. They reflect values central to paganism, so creativity, connection with nature and healing, and wisdom and leadership. Many Druids are particularly concerned with their relationship with the natural world, with ancestors, and with the bardic arts as ways of connecting with the divine.
So now we're going to look at heathenry, which you may also hear called Ashiatru or Norse paganism. Heathenry is a modern revival of the old pre-Christian religions of Northern Europe. It draws on the myths, folklore and cultural practices of the Norse and Germanic peoples. Many heathens honour gods and goddesses you might recognise from stories such as Odin, Thor and Freya, as well as their ancestors and the spirits of the natural world. It's important to understand that heathenry isn't one single unified religion. Instead, it's a family of related traditions. Different groups and individuals practice in different ways, depending on how they interpret historical sources, their cultural background, and their personal beliefs. So let's look at some key beliefs commonly found within heathenry. First, heathens are generally polytheistic, meaning they honour many deities, each with their own stories and roles. Second, there is a strong emphasis on ancestral respect, honouring both recent and family ancestors and ancient forebears. Another important element is the belief in nature and land spirits. These spirits are considered part of the environment and are often treated with respect or given small offerings. Many heathens also talk about weird or word, a concept similar to interconnected fate. The idea is that everything we do contributes to a wider web of cause and effect. And finally, values such as honour, integrity, responsibility and community are also central to many heathen worldviews. So what does heathen practice actually look like? Some heathens take part in rituals called blots, which are ceremonies that involve giving an offering, often food or drink, to gods, ancestors or spirits. Another key ritual is simbel or symbol, which is a structured ceremony of toasting, storytelling and sharing meaningful intentions. This helps to build community bonds. Many heathens also celebrate seasonal festivals, often linked to the cycles of the natural world, such as solstices, equinoxes and harvest times. Some practitioners spend time studying historical texts or archaeology to inform what they do, a process sometimes called reconstruction. And for many heathens, this includes everyday household practices, lighting a candle, acknowledging ancestors, or leaving a small offering. There is also a lot of diversity within heathenry. Different branches exist. Some emphasise historical accuracy, while others take a more modern, intuitive approach. Although its roots are Northern European, heathenry today is practiced worldwide in communities that are diverse, inclusive, and culturally varied. Some heathens join groups called kindreds or hearths, while others practice entirely on their own. To finish, here are a few key points for educators. Heathenry is a modern revival of ancient Norse and Germanic traditions. It often centres on polytheism, ancestor veneration, and a deep connection to nature and community. Practices vary widely, so there's no single correct version of heathenry. And when teaching, it's important to keep cultural context in mind and avoid stereotypes, especially those drawn from popular Viking films, TV shows, or games. Overall, heathenry is a rich, living tradition with many forms, and understanding its diversity helps us present it to children in a respectful and accurate way.
So next we're going to explore the question, who are shamans? So shamans are spiritual practitioners who are found in many different cultures around the world. You'll find shamanic traditions in places as varied as Siberia, Mongolia, the Americas, Africa, and Oceania. Although the term is sometimes linked with pagan or animistic beliefs, it's actually much broader than any single religion. Rather than following a formal set of doctrines, shamanism is practice-based. What unites shamanic traditions is the role of the shaman, someone who acts as a bridge between the physical world and the spiritual world, working to heal, guide, and bring balance to their community. So let's look at some key beliefs that commonly appear in shamanic traditions. Firstly, many shamans work from a sense of spiritual interconnectedness. So this idea that humans, animals, plants, and even elements like rivers and mountains all have the same spiritual essence. Shamans also recognize a spirit world, which may include ancestors, helping spirits, or other non-physical beings. They interact with these spirits for insight, healing, or support. Another central theme is healing and balance. Shamans aim to restore harmony when something feels out of alignment, whether that's within a person, a family, or the wider environment. And many shamanic traditions are grounded in animism, seeing the natural world as alive and spiritually meaningful. So, how do shamans practice? Well, one well-known practice is trance or journeying. Shamans may enter an altered state of consciousness, often through rhythmic drumming, chanting, dancing, or deep meditation to communicate with the spirit world. They may lead rituals and ceremonies such as purification rites, seasonal celebrations, offerings, or other forms of divination. Healing is a key part of many traditions and might include herbal remedies, energy work, or guidance gained from the spirits they work with. Shamans also often serve as community figures, acting as healers, counsellors, mediators, or spiritual guides, depending on the cultural tradition. It's important to understand that there is enormous diversity within shamanism. Each culture has its own beliefs, methods, and spiritual relationships. Shamanic practice in Mongolia looks very different from that in the Amazon or in the Arctic or among various indigenous groups in South America. Some shamans focus mainly on healing, while others specialize in divination, guiding spirits, or providing protection. Becoming a shaman may involve a personal calling, an apprenticeship with an experienced practitioner, or a spiritual initiation, and this process varies greatly from place to place. In modern times, some pagan or neo-shamanic paths draw inspiration from traditional practices, combining them with meditation or nature-based spirituality. And it's useful to remember that these modern forms can differ significantly from traditional indigenous shamanism, which is deeply tied to specific cultures and histories. Finally, here are a few key points for educators. So shamanism is a spiritual practice rather than a single global religion. Common themes include connections to nature, interaction with the spirit world, and a focus on healing and balance. There is no one way to be a shaman. Practices and beliefs vary widely across cultures and individuals. When teaching children, it's important to emphasize respect for nature, cultural context, and spiritual diversity, and to avoid stereotypes or sensationalized magical portrayals. Overall, shamanism represents a rich and diverse set of traditions found across the world, each with its own history and meaning. Helping children understand this in a sensitive, respectful way supports cultural awareness and appreciation.
Many pagan religions tend to find the divine in nature. They believe that they live in relationship with persons around themselves, only some of which are human. The non-human can be understood in terms of animals and plants, the ecosystem that they belong to, land spirits and goddesses. Different pagan traditions often honour many gods and goddesses, often drawn from ancient mythologies. These deities are often expressions of natural forces, human qualities, or cosmic principles. Pagan practice varies. Some of the gods are real beings, others as symbols or archetypes.
The Wheel of the Year is very important to many modern pagans. It's a calendar of 8 seasonal festivals or Sabbats that mark the changing cycles of the sun and nature. The 8 festivals include the 4 solar events, so the winter solstice, summer solstice, spring equinox and autumn equinox, and the 4 fire or quarter festivals of Imbolc, Beltane, Lunasa and Samhain. Many pagans use the Wheel of the Year to celebrate life, growth, harvest and rest, following the natural rhythms of the seasons. It helps many pagans connect with the earth, honour the cycles of nature and structure their spiritual practice throughout the year. Let's look at the festival of Imbolc now. So this festival celebrates the light and the first stirrings of spring. It's the first festival of the calendar year. And in Britain, the festival is associated with snowdrops, and these are used in Imbolc celebrations to decorate altars, doorways and windows. The name Imbolc originates from the Irish, which translates as in the belly, and refers to the fact that Celtic livestock were breeding at this time and many ewes and cows were ready to give birth. For many modern pagans, Imbolc is a time of purification and stripping away of the old in preparation for the coming year. Many of the celebrations and practices at this time of the year are linked to the goddess Brigid, who is best known in Ireland, but who may have been worshipped by Celtic communities in other countries. Her name means bright, high or exalted, and she's also known as Brid or Brigid. Brigid is mentioned in the Irish writings as a triple goddess. She is the bringer of human inspiration. So the Gaelic word for this is imbas. It means fire in the head. So she's associated with poetry. Brigid is also seen as goddess of the hearth, the central spot in ancient Irish and Scottish houses where the fire burns constantly, warming the house and cooking the food. And she's also known as the goddess of the forge. The intense fire of the forge is the fire that transforms something into a different shape. So Brigid's also associated with metalwork, with containers, farming implements, jewellery and weapons. Today, many pagans weave Brigid's crosses from reeds, which are hung on doorways and hearths to bring protection and blessing. It's possible that Christian missionaries added arms onto the diamond or lozenge shapes, which may have been Celtic symbols associated with Imbolc, and formed a cross, so giving this symbol a Christian meaning. Some pagans make a bridie or a small doll to represent Bridget. You can see an example of this on screen now. In modern pagan homes, the doll is often placed in a bed, often in the hearth, and over the night of the 1st and 2nd of February, in the hope that the goddess will visit the house and be at home there. In Ireland, the bridie would have been carried from house to house to receive food and drink and small coins in return for blessings for the year. A small piece of cloth known as a brat may have been hung outside overnight in the hope that Bridget will bless it. The brat is often green in colour, as Bridget is quite frequently depicted with a green mantle. The cloth is then used to wrap around anyone who is ill during the year to bring healing. Some pagans believe that the power of the cloth will increase every year it is hung out, up to a maximum of 7 years. Public celebrations of Imbolc involve music, poetry, storytelling, processions and bonfires. Some pagans prefer to celebrate Imbolc quietly at home with their family.
The spring equinox happens around the 21st of March, when day and night are equal in length. It marks the time when light and warmth return and the earth begins to bloom again after winter. It's a time to celebrate the balance between light and dark, to welcome the growing strength of the sun, to celebrate renewal, fertility, growth and new life in nature. Many pagans plant seeds, decorate their homes with flowers, and give thanks for nature's renewal. Eggs and hares are ancient symbols of fertility and rebirth and are often connected to this festival. Beltane is a pagan festival which celebrates the beginning of summer. It's associated with the lighting of ritual fires and with fertility. In ancient times, all hearth fires would be doused before the bonfire was lit, generally on a hill. Fire was seen as a purifier and healer and would have been walked around, danced and jumped over by members of the community. Farmers would have also driven their cattle between bonfires to cleanse and protect them before being put out into the fields. When the bonfire died down, people would daub themselves in its ashes and sprinkle it over their crops and livestock. Burning torches from the bonfire would be taken home, carried around the house or boundary of the farmstead, and used to relight the hearth. Food would be cooked on the bonfire. In some places, bannocks, a flatbread, were baked on the Beltane fire and then given out to the community. The doors and windows would be decorated with flowers, especially primroses, because of their resemblance to stars or sparks. Beltane is generally celebrated about the 1st of May, although some pagans celebrate it at the halfway point between the spring equinox and the summer solstice, which falls about the 5th of May. Some pagans celebrate Beltane when the May blossom or hawthorn starts to bloom. Beltane means bright fire, Bel meaning bright one, and was probably a Celtic fire god. For many pagans, Beltane has become associated with the idea of fertility, both physical and in terms of creativity. Some Wiccans may celebrate the wedding of the Lord and Lady at this time, also known as the god and the goddess. Beltane is also a popular time for pagans to celebrate hand fastings, a commitment ceremony. These may be binding for a year and a day, or for a period chosen by the couple, or it may be permanent. Many pagan groups still celebrate by lighting a fire or 2 fires, and those celebrating pass between the fires in the hope of receiving protection and blessing. This is a significant feature of the Beltane Fire Festival, held every year at Carlton Hill in Edinburgh. The summer solstice happens around the 21st of June, the longest day of the year. It marks the time when the sun is at its highest point in the sky. For some pagans and druids, it celebrates the power of the sun and the fullness of life in nature, and many pagans choose to give thanks for the earth's energy, light and growth. Celebrations of the summer solstice often happen at Stonehenge and other ancient sites. During the celebration, people may watch the sunrise, light bonfires, dance, sing and make flower garlands. It is a time to feel connected to nature and celebrate life, warmth and abundance.
Let's have a look at the festival of Lunasa now. So this marks the beginning of the harvest season, and it's usually celebrated on the 1st of August. In Christian tradition, it later became associated with Lammas, which means loaf mass. The festival is named after the Celtic god Lu, and it's associated with skill, craft and leadership. In mythology, Lunasa was a festival of games and feasting held in honour of Lu's foster mother, Talju, who died after preparing the land for farming. The festival is an opportunity to express gratitude for the first harvest of grains, fruits and vegetables. Bread baking is traditional. The first loaves are offered in thanks. There are community gatherings with feasting, music and storytelling. Some pagans celebrate with rituals of thanks, offering food and drink to deities or reflecting on personal harvests, so those of achievements or growth. The symbolism of Lunasa represents abundance, gratitude and preparation for the darker months ahead. It's a reminder of the cycle of life, death and rebirth in nature, and it has a strong connection to the land and seasonal change. The autumn equinox happens around the 21st to the 23rd of September each year, and it marks the end of summer and the beginning of autumn. On this day, day and night are equal in length, and so it's a time of balance. It's also known as Mabon. Mabon comes from Mabon ap Modron, a character in Welsh mythology, and his name means great son of the great mother. In myth, Mabon is a child of light who is taken into darkness and later reborn, symbolising the balance between light and dark at the equinox. However, there is quite a lot of debate about the term Mabon for the autumn equinox amongst pagans. At the autumn equinox, many pagans celebrate the harvest and give thanks for the earth's abundance. It's a time to share food, reflect and prepare for the darker months ahead. Many honour the balance between light and dark and life and rest. The autumn equinox is celebrated with feasts and gatherings with seasonal food like apples, grains and berries, by decorating altars with autumn leaves and symbols of the harvest, and by giving thanks for nature's gifts through showing kindness to others. Just a word about the image you can see on the screen. This was taken at the autumn equinox celebration at Thornbrahenge, and the Mari, which is the horse's head, is around in pagan circles at least from Samhain until early January, or the last wassels in early February. It's not pagan in origin, but it's a South Welsh tradition attested from the early 19th century. In reality, it's probably earlier than this. It's a mumming type tradition, which is when participants go from door to door asking for food, drink and money. If you'd like to find out more about this, there's a really interesting article on the Pagan Federation website. Samhain, which means summer's end, is an important festival because it marks the new year, and it's a time to remember the ancestors, recent and ancient, with gratitude and honour. It usually takes place between the last few days of October and the first few days of November. There's no evidence that this festival was associated with remembering the dead, and recent scholars have suggested that this was adopted from the Christian celebration of All Hallows Eve. The festival usually involves a celebratory meal called a dumb supper, and this is often eaten in silence and in reverse order, so starting with dessert. The ancient Celts seem to have associated reversing things with the other world, so for many pagans this is a way to connect with the dead. Some pagans will make the traditional soul cakes with whatever grain is available, as well as serving dishes with apples, late autumn vegetables and game if available. Some will use black tableware, cloths and candles. A place is set for the honoured dead who are invited to join the group for a meal. At the end, a bell is rung, the conversation resumes and it turns into a party. Samhain is also a fire festival, so there are bonfires and fireworks as well. Celebrations at this time would often involve a small ceremony at home, perhaps followed by small offerings of food or drink. Photos of deceased family members may be placed on a small altar. Some believe that the festivals of Beltane and Samhain were originally the most important because they mark the beginning and the end of summer, at a time when the early Celtic people herded animals and transferred their cattle from one grazing ground to another throughout the seasons. Beltane would mark the time when cattle were taken to higher ground away from the villagers, accompanied by many of the men. Samhain would celebrate the return of the cattle and the men, meaning the whole village community were reunited.
The winter solstice happens around the 21st of December, the shortest day and longest night of the year. It marks the moment when the sun begins to return and the days slowly start to get longer again. For many pagans and druids, it's a time to celebrate the rebirth of the sun and the promise of light returning to the world. It's a time to give thanks for the sun's return and reflect on the cycles of nature, a time for hope, renewal and new beginnings. Traditional celebrations include lighting fires or candles to welcome back the light, sharing food and drink, and decorating with evergreens like holly, ivy and mistletoe to symbolise life through the dark months. Some people gather at Stonehenge or other ancient sites to watch the sunrise as it marks the turning of the year. So now we're going to look at magic and ritual within pagan traditions. And to begin, it's important to recognise that when pagans talk about magic, spelled with a K, to distinguish it from stage magic or illusion, they're not referring to spooky powers or anything designed to frighten or harm. In paganism, magic is really about intention. It's a way of focusing the mind, connecting with nature, and encouraging positive change. Many pagans describe it as a spiritual tool that works alongside personal effort, much like a mindful or symbolic practice. Most pagan paths also place strong emphasis on ethics. A well-known example is the Wiccan Rede, which states, "And it harm none, do what ye will." This encourages practitioners to consider the impact of their actions, to be responsible and to avoid causing harm, whether to themselves, others, or the natural world. Magic can take many forms. For some people, it might involve a simple action, like lighting a candle with a particular intention in mind. Others might work with charms, prayers, meditation, visualization, or small symbolic gestures. The key idea is that magic supports well-being, encourages reflection, and strengthens a sense of connection to nature, to the community, or to one's inner self. It isn't about supernatural powers, it's about meaning and mindful practice. Alongside magic, ritual is also an important part of pagan spirituality. A ritual might be a structured ceremony or a very simple act. It could involve casting a circle to create a sense of sacred space, making offerings, chanting or drumming, or spending time in meditation. Many pagan rituals follow the wheel of the year, a cycle of seasonal festivals that includes the solstices, equinoxes, and agricultural celebrations such as harvest festivals. These moments help pagans stay in tune with the changing seasons and the rhythms of the natural world. Rituals can be elaborate celebrations involving a whole community, or they may be quiet, personal, or moments of reflection at home. It's also important to highlight that practices vary widely. Different traditions such as Wicca, Druidry, heathenry, eclectic paganism, and neo-shamanic paths each bring their own practices, symbols, and ways of working with ritual and magic. Some people practice alone, while others gather in groups like covens, circles, or kindreds. And rituals are often adapted to suit the needs of the community or the individual, making pagan practice highly flexible and personal. For teachers, here are some key takeaways. Pagan magic is symbolic and ethical, focused on intention and connection, not on fear or supernatural powers. Nature, cycles, and community are common themes across many different pagan traditions. And finally, there is a lot of diversity. There is no single way to practice paganism, and rituals can look very different depending on the tradition or the individual. Understanding these ideas can help us support children from pagan families and also enrich our teaching about worldviews, nature connection, and cultural diversity. So next we're going to explore symbols and tools in paganism, an area that often sparks curiosity, especially because these things are sometimes misunderstood in popular culture. In reality, pagan symbols and tools are largely symbolic, reflective, and rooted in nature, rather than being objects of supernatural power. Their purpose is to help practitioners focus, connect, and create a sense of meaning during rituals or moments of reflection. So let's have a look at some of the most common symbols. Many pagan traditions use symbols to express spiritual ideas or to reflect natural cycles. These symbols act almost like visual reminders of certain values or principles. One of the most recognizable symbols is the pentacle, a 5-pointed star within a circle. In pagan contexts, each point of the star represents an element: earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, held together in balance by the circle around it. For many people, it's a symbol of protection, harmony, and connection to the natural world. Another common symbol is the triple moon, which shows the waxing, full, and waning phases of the moon. This symbol represents the three aspects of the goddess: maiden, mother, and crone, and reflects the broader idea of life's changing cycles. The spiral is also widely used. It represents growth, journeying, and the unfolding of personal or spiritual development. And of course, sun and moon symbols appear frequently, often expressing the balance of day and night, masculine and feminine energies, or the interplay of light and shadow. Awen is a Welsh word meaning inspiration and represents a divine, flowing, creative spirit. It's often symbolized by 3 rays of light, representing divine inspiration, nature, and the self. Finally, many pagans look to natural symbols, animals, plants, stones, or trees, as sources of meaning. For instance, an owl might symbolize wisdom, or an oak tree might represent strength. These associations vary by tradition and personal experience, but the underlying theme is a deep respect for nature. Alongside symbols, many pagans use tools during rituals or ceremonies. These tools are not magical in the fictional sense. Instead, they help practitioners focus their intention, create sacred space, or engage with ritual in a mindful way. At Affirme, for example, a small ritual knife is used to direct energy. Importantly, it is symbolic and not used for physical cutting. A wand might be used for similar purpose, channeling intention or guiding energy during a ritual. A chalice typically represents the element of water or the presence of the goddess, and it might be used to hold offerings or blessed water. The cauldron is another traditional tool, symbolizing transformation, creativity, and even rebirth, drawing on ancient folklore, but used today in reflective or symbolic ways. And a pentacle disc, a flat surface engraved with the pentacle symbol, is often used to represent the element of earth and to ground ritual work. Many other everyday items can be used as well: candles, incense, herbs, flowers, or crystals. These help mark intentions, create atmosphere, or connect with the natural elements that are so central to pagan worldviews. It's important to emphasize that there is no single set of tools used by all pagans. For example, Wiccan traditions tend to use a more standardized set of ritual tools, while eclectic pagans may choose items that feel personally meaningful. Others may not use physical tools at all, preferring simple practices based on mindfulness or connection with the outdoors. This diversity is a key theme across paganism. For teachers, the main things to keep in mind are that pagan symbols and tools are symbolic, not sensational or magical in a fictional sense. There is a wide variation. Different traditions and individuals may use different symbols or none at all. And many of these symbols highlight connection with nature, reflection, and ethical intention, which can be very relatable themes for children. Understanding this helps us support pupils from pagan families and present pagan worldviews in a respectful and accurate way.
So let's sum up now the key points that we've made in today's webinar. So paganism is an umbrella term for a variety of spiritual paths, including Wicca, Druidry, heathenry, and eclectic or individual practices. While beliefs and practices vary widely, many pagans share a strong connection to nature, to seasonal cycles, and to community. The Wheel of the Year is a key framework marking festivals such as solstices, equinoxes, and harvest celebrations, which can help many pagans connect with the rhythms of the natural world. In paganism, magic, rituals, symbols, and tools are largely symbolic and ethical. Magic is a way to focus intention and encourage positive change, while rituals, ranging from personal acts to communal ceremonies, celebrate nature, life cycles, and community. Symbols such as the pentacle, triple moon, spiral, sun, moon, Arwen, and natural elements, and tools like athems, wands, chalices, cauldrons, candles, and herbs are used to support reflection, mindfulness, and connection rather than fictional or harmful magic. So when teaching paganism in schools, the focus should be on the themes that the children can relate to. So that might include connection with nature, cycles of life and community, respect for diversity, so acknowledging that not all pagans follow the same rituals, celebrate the same deities, or use the same tools, and focus on ethical practice, so the symbolic nature of magic and ritual, avoiding sensationalized or spooky portrayals. It's also important for teachers to be aware that some children may come from pagan families, and bringing these values and practices into their daily lives and their spirituality may influence how they view nature and the seasons. Presenting paganism respectfully and factually supports inclusivity and broadens children's understanding of spiritual and cultural diversity, which helps create an environment where all pupils feel valued and understood.
To support this webinar, we have produced a summary of all the information we have shared. If you email either Jerry or myself, we would be more than happy to send out a copy. We've also produced a range of activities for each primary age phase to support children in developing a deeper understanding of paganism as a worldview. Also on the Jigsaw portal, you will find assemblies on the summer and winter solstice, offering a whole school approach to learning about pagan celebrations.
And as we draw our webinar to a close, here are some suggestions for further reading. There's a variety of books on paganism. This is just a selection. So Paganism, An Introduction to Earth-Centered Religions by Sarah Bartlett. This is a clear overview of modern pagan beliefs, festivals and traditions. The Pagan Book of Days by Nigel Pennick, that explains seasonal celebrations, rituals and the Wheel of the Year. Celebrating the Pagan Year by Eden McCoy focuses on key festivals and seasonal practices, and it's a simple readable style. Living Wicca, a teacher's guide by Sarah Ann Lawless, gives practical explanations of Wiccan beliefs, ethics and celebrations. And Pagan Religions in 5 Minutes, edited by Suzanne Owen and Angela Puka, gives an overview of the main pagan pathways. There are some useful websites available, including BBC Bite Size, What is Paganism? These are short, reliable explanations that are suitable for teachers and older primary pupils. The British Druid Order has something on festivals and beliefs. It gives the background on Druidry, festivals and the connection to nature. The Pagan Federation UK offers educational resources and guidance for understanding modern pagan practices. There's RE Quest, which has resources for paganism in primary schools. These are lesson ideas, key vocabulary and explanations of festivals like the solstices and the equinoxes. And then there's What is Paganism, an online talk by Dr. Jennifer Uzzell. This is a 2-part lecture series and it explores the essence of paganism in modern society. It discusses how ancient beliefs are interpreted and followed today. And that one's available through the Centre for Pagan Studies.
If you'd like to discuss anything further about this webinar, or you'd like more information about Jigsaw RE, then there are several ways to get in touch that you can see on the screen now. We're always happy to answer questions, so please do reach out if you need to.
You can also get in touch with us directly. Our emails are on the screen and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much for watching our webinar, and a special thank you to Dr. Jennifer Uzzell, who is the Education Officer for the Pagan Federation and who has been very generous with her time and expertise. Thank you so much, Jenny. And also a special thanks to Chris Woods from the Norwich Pagan Moot, who has supported us with this wealth of knowledge. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.